topic of this morning's panel, tourism driving growth and capital. We're going to look at three areas in particular: infrastructure, obviously, but also culture and the creative industries. And I was thinking about the burning question that this panel poses. How can tourism be a powerful driver of Africa's economic transformation? That is a big ask to transform the economy of an entire continent. But we've got three people here today who are tasked with making that happen. And Yusuf introduced them. Your Excellency Patricia de Lille from South Africa, may I start with you, please? Let's set the scene. So when it comes to growth and capital, where are we today in South Africa within tourism? And then briefly, what is your vision for where you want to be?
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and to the government and the people of the UAE, thank you for the warm welcome. Certainly in South Africa, tourism is a driver, a big driver of our economy. It contributes at least 9% to our GDP, and it's created almost 1.6 million jobs. But the key, the drivers, is really infrastructure investment in tourism products so that we can develop the destination further. And we do that with public-private partnerships. Just recently, we have released, or we have relieved us from the bureaucracy of regulations, and it's much, much more easier. Also, we had made several changes to our visa system. We now have an electronic travel authorization. And together with that, of course, is air access. We continue to work to bring more flights to South Africa. And then, of course, you know, we've got a proud history, a proud heritage, and the culture of our country. We are a very diverse country. But that's actually the big asset of South Africa, it's our people. And so my vision is to see that going into the future, that we begin to digitize, that we begin to use more technology like AI, but not to replace technology with the human factor of tourism. And yes, and then of course also, you know, we want investment. And I want to thank our Honorable Minister from the UAE for their confidence that they've displayed in investing in South Africa. And we will continue to grow that, Minister. Thank you. Shukran.
Thank you very much indeed. Your Excellency Hannatu Musa Masawa, if I can turn to you with a similar question. Within the Federal Republic of Nigeria, where do we stand today when it comes to capital and growth in tourism, and what is your vision?
Thank you again for that question. Thank you for that question. First of all, I want to thank the government of the UAE, Honourable Minister, for your magnanimity and, of course, your hospitality. And I want to, again, congratulate the incoming DG of the UN Tourism. I think you're going to make a huge impact in the world. You know, for Nigeria, which, of course, you know, is a huge population. I think 1 out of every 5 African is a Nigerian, and by 2050, we're going to be maybe the 3rd most populous country in the world. So, you know, in the past, Nigeria has always looked at, because we're an oil-producing country, and we put a lot of importance into oil producing. But as that population is growing, we realize that the future of Nigeria cannot be sustained based on that. You know, there's a huge, I think 70% of the population is under 18. So when you look at the future of Nigeria, you know, our president was very intentional and very deliberate in diversifying. And the area that he looked at diversifying was tourism, art, culture, and creative industry, because that's really the heartbeat of Nigeria. So we started from ground up, from ground zero when it came to tourism. We're looking at policies, you know, policies, regulatory framework, and of course infrastructure. There's a huge dearth of all of this in Nigeria. So we have not been able to build a strong and robust intricate tourism industry, perhaps as our brothers and sisters in the southern part of Africa and the eastern part of Africa. But now, as a ministry, we're really looking at using tourism and then inculcating it with the creative and the art industry, and of course the cultural industry. Nigeria is diverse with 240 different diversities, very, very different. So we want to see that as a strength, but it has never been a strength because the government has never been intentional. So now we're looking at building on that, and by being able to build on that, that is the one area that has the ability to resonate with every part of Nigeria. And we see that as having a plethora of benefits, such as security. So, Nigeria is really building on the infrastructure, and we're looking at working with the UAE and looking at the kind of real estate that is abound in Nigeria to really build on that. Because, Nigeria, because of the growing population, and we see it as a gateway to not only Africa, but also to the Southern Caribbean, to South America, because there's a lot of Nigerians or black people of Nigerian descent that have ancestry with Nigeria. So, Nigeria has to play a key role, especially in the creative industry. So we're looking at using that interest in music, in Nollywood, in the film industry, and in the content that Nigeria has in the art to build on the tourism. So that tourism is really where we see the future of Nigeria. So like I said, we're just building from ground zero, and we need that partnership. We need a country like UAE that has belief in Nigeria and has belief that we have a lot of worth and value to give. And so by partnering, and of course the investors coming in, we can look at the sort of growth that we see in other countries. And Nigeria, once Nigeria catches a cold, the whole of Africa catches a flu. So Nigeria has to be correct, and the future of Nigeria really rests on being able to build these different areas of Nigeria. And I think that really has to lie in the tourism and the creative industry, which is where we're looking at building from ground zero up.
Thank you very much indeed. We'll explore some of those details or some of those ideas in a bit more detail in a few moments' time. But if I can turn to you, Sheku Marsilla, from the International Finance Corporation, part of the World Bank. Now, when I think of those three things I mentioned, infrastructure, culture, creative industries, maybe I do the IFC a disservice. I see your role more in infrastructure than in culture and creative industries, but maybe I'm wrong. How do you see your role in driving growth and capital?
Thank you, Richard. And just before starting, when coming, to this event, this morning, and after listening to His Excellency, the UAE Minister of Economy and Tourism, it reminds me a say in my own village, is you cannot try to wake up someone who is not sleeping. And you are not sleeping as a UAE, and Excellency, thank you for your remarks, and thanks for your Excellencies, as well. I would say the two Excellencies really set, I would say, how IFC is now, engaging. Tourism is part of our 5 top priorities for the continent. Our agenda is job creation, and tourism is the second largest, sector to create, jobs. IFC has invested last fiscal year around $15 billion into the African continent, which is 20% of what the global IFC, investment. We invest globally close to $4 billion in the hospitality sector, 300 projects in 95 countries, and in Africa, 1.2 billion, which is 132 projects in 32 countries. I would say that we used to finance, hotels, and this cannot be the only, objective. As Excellency Delille said, you have to look at the whole ecosystem, and it's why, when you mention, infrastructure, of course, we do infrastructure, we do roads, we do airport, we do renewable energy, but it's not enough. If you look today to the tourism, you have to look at the whole value chain. yes, you build a hotel, but we mentioned under the visa, so you need to have people getting into your country. Then you have to have the road, the facility, the logistics. Then after that, you have the service, okay? And you have at the end to give, I would say, the opportunity to someone, to be willing to come back. I would say this is the real factor of success. So we do look at infrastructure, we do look at skills, we do look like digital and not alone. We are quite, lucky within the World Bank Group when we can look at, I would say, on the policies. We have, some instrument of de-risking, investment, or guarantee, some investment. We as IFC can provide financing, being on loan or equity. And more importantly, I think I hear that is partners. The demand is so high that, we need to mobilize, partners. We are not doing only infrastructure. We do also do creative industry. And I know Her Excellency in Nigeria knows that IFC is very active as well, because for us, it's a global, package.
That's good to know, and I'm happy to be corrected on that. Thank you very much indeed. Your Excellency De Lille, if I can turn to you in South Africa, clearly a lot of successes so far, and you were Mayor of Cape Town for some time. That's a real success story in terms of South African tourism. But what are the challenges to take it to the next step? And given where we are today in the UAE, what role could the UAE, government, private sector, potentially play in overcoming some of those challenges?
Well, thank you again. Yes, indeed, there are challenges. I would classify access to finance as one, but also the infrastructure gap between rural and urban, and we need to bridge that gap. The second one is skills transfer. I think instead of reinventing the wheel, we can learn a lot from our other African brothers and sisters and the UAE. And then for me, it is identifying those projects. I mean, I've got a pipeline and we have submitted some of the projects, but it's to make sure that you provide the skills to make sure that the projects are bankable, so that when you take it to investors, they are able to consider it. But also the methodology of funding. Investors must be given the opportunity to choose how they want to invest their money, either to public-private partnerships, build, operate, and transfer, build, own, operate, and transfer. And I have now started a one-stop shop for investment in my office, because I really want to test not only the market, but to learn and see what more can we do to further grow tourism in South Africa. We've seen about a more than 30% increase just in the month of August, and that's thanks to the G20. We're proud to host the G20 this year. And there are many opportunities for collaboration amongst African countries. Competition is good. Yes, we must compete with each other, but we also need to work together to give the rest of the world that continental perspective of what is available in Africa. The potential is endless. I think that we must just do more to untap that potential of the continent. Thank you.
Your Excellency Masawa, a similar question to you about Nigeria when it comes to some of the challenges to achieving the next stage, the next vision, and perhaps the role the UAE can play. But maybe if you could layer on top of that your background and experience as a lawyer. When Yusuf introduced you, he mentioned barrister in your title. So perhaps you can offer some perspective on that as well?
So again, thank you for that question. What I will do is piggyback on my colleagues' expressions. I think it is very important that the infrastructure gap that we spoke about is very, very key. Like I said earlier on, there's a dearth of infrastructure in terms of really growing the tourism industry in Nigeria. But that is not so much as a challenge. That is an opportunity for investment. You know, there's a lot of value and there's a lot of returns that come with the investment that lies within the tourism industry. Already we're actively having a discussion about building on the hotel structure. And you know, when you build on this, the value chain that you spoke about, my sister, you know, that is one area, because it's really, for us, for me, I always think about job creation is a growing young population. How do you absorb this growing young population into the job market? And I think tourism is one of the areas that you're able to do that, because even apart from the international tourism, you're talking about the domestic tourism as well.
Yeah.
Nigeria has a natural market because it's just such a huge population even from within. And it is a huge opportunity for us to work together with our brothers and sisters in the African continent. In the vision of Marcus Garvey, you know, he wanted Africa to be united. And I think we have not been able to really tap into that because we've been working in silos. I think tourism, the creative industry, the cultural industry gives us an opportunity to do that, but we cannot do that without investment. It is an understatement to say that the UAE is a success story when it comes to tourism. It really is an understatement. Every time you come to the UAE, you see development at a faster rate than you could have ever imagined. And this is something that I think Africa can really benefit from. For us, in this administration, we've been very deliberate in setting up special purpose vehicles that give an opportunity for investment. Special purpose vehicles for the tourism industry. Citico was recently approved by the Federal Executive Council. So, you know, when you bring in tourism, we make sure that there's the kind of confidence that investors need. We're very, very intentional because we have to build tourism. And, you know, we already have a number of low-hanging fruits. We have your Obudus, Obudu ranches, you know, we have your cocoa beaches, we have a number of low-hanging fruits, your Dirty Decembers, if you've heard of anything called Dirty December in Nigeria, a number of festivals, over 1,000 festivals that we want to be able to leverage on. And we have signed MOUs with a number of countries, specifically in the Caribbean, in South America, that really want to come back to Africa to look at their roots, the homecoming. So these are areas that have huge, pardon the pun, real estate in terms of what investment, the kind of return that you get on investment. So I want to make sure that we're very deliberate in talking with the UAE so that this is a mutually beneficial relationship whereby you have a market, you have a gateway, you already have content, you have just so much interest. And you know, we're working with a partner that sees a lot of value and worth and respect in us. And I think this is one of the things working with the UAE that is very encouraging, you know, as a government person and just as an African, as an African, you know, just to see a government and a country that really has an interest in not only tapping into the resources. So that enabling environment that is required in any developing country whereby tourism is to develop, this is what we want to do in Nigeria. So talking with investors, talking with the UAE, and being very deliberate in tapping into the natural content and already the natural destinations, such as your cocoa beaches, such as your Ikogo seas, some of the very, very interesting destinations that have the ability to catalyze growth, not only for the local community, but also for the investors and for the partnering governments, and of course create that synergy towards, you know, Africa so that we can work pari passu as governments and make sure that, you know, Africa is fortified. Africa has to have a new conversation. Africa has to have a new reality. And I think in that area of creativity, culture, and tourism, which is the one area that everybody has interest in, not in the oil. So, you know, this is where we see the potential of really doing so much that is going to benefit our communities.
And if I could ask you a quick follow-up on that, just a very quick word on the legal landscape, given your legal background, what would be your message to investors or potential investors in the UAE about the legal landscape? I know it's a big topic, but a quick word if you could.
So initially, that's why I said we started from ground zero. I was very deliberate in saying that because coming in, governments always in Africa, what you find is because every 4 or 5 years there's a new government, there's lack of continuity. And I think that lack of continuity has been part of the problem with us developing sort of that landscape. But myself coming in as a minister of with this very wide portfolio in Nigeria, I felt it was important for us to start from ground zero. There's no point in painting a beautiful house when there's not a very strong foundation. So from a legal perspective, we felt, the policy. The policy was very key. There was not an updated policy. The regulatory and legal frameworks were very obsolete in Nigeria because the area of tourism and the creative industry, though it is very strong, the creative industry in Nigeria, but it is something that has been built by the creatives organically on their own without government setting up a proper legal framework. So from a legal point of view, we were very deliberate and very intentional and putting up the parameters that give that enabling environment. So when you come in as an investor and the special purpose vehicles that we have introduced, when you come in as an investor, we make sure now that you have confidence and you have a protection from IP and the different policies and the legal frameworks that is required. So we ensure that everything that is done in the so-called developing world that builds on, and I have to say that we looked at South Korea, we looked at Dubai as benchmark countries, worked with BCG to ensure that whatever they put in place that allowed them to grow the Korean wave, and of course in Dubai. And what we did was localize it. So all the frameworks, the strategies that were used to build on this very robust and intricate system is what we have done in Nigeria. So from a legal point of view, we made sure that those frameworks were in place, and the special purpose vehicles gives the protection that is required. So some of the bureaucracy that comes with the bottlenecks that come with government, has been sort of taken out, and the protection that is necessary, we have made sure that we put that in place now.
Thank you very much indeed. Time is against us. Just a couple more minutes. Sheikh Umar Silla, from the IFC perspective, clearly there's a well-established playbook that you guys have and you use it. But what's new? A quick word on where the innovation is coming in financing or maybe even strategy.
Thank you. I would say we hear a lot about the challenges, but I'm hearing opportunities. And I do think when Your Excellency mentioned, this pipeline, of project, we do have what we call our upstream facility, which help project to bring them to a bankable, stage.
Yes.
Be it after that financed by IFC, or not. Again, we provide long-term financing, but one thing as well, which is a quite significant shift in our strategy, is to do more equity. We always say that loan, you help a company, but taking equity, you help transform, the company. And this is something that is in our 2030 strategy. So we will be happy, Nigeria, South Africa, or elsewhere to be an equity partner with some investor, maybe from the UAE as well. So this is very clear. On the innovation side, of course, it was mentioned that the development has to be inclusive. So looking at the value chain, when it's come, to the food, supply chain, why import, food when you can call on your farmers into the country? Creating, better jobs. This is for us fundamental. And you mentioned that in the hospitality sector, the place of the job for women is there, but we need to have good jobs as well, for women and men. Digital definitely is an accelerator for, to kill, the barrier. Sustainable as well is doing, some green and friendly, project. We have developed within the IFC what we call the hedge certification, which help, to save, the utilities, be it energy or water. And one thing I would say which is critical, it is skills. Because you can have all that you want, but if you don't have the proper people to manage your operation, your experience as a customer will not be great. So having the right skill to meet, the job demand, but to keep our people into the continent, this should be also our. So we have the financial tool, we have, I would say, the advisory, tool, and we have the innovation, tools. And I can give you maybe quickly 3 examples.
Well, we've got about a minute left.
Okay.
One quick example.
No, I do think if I'm going to take the example of Cabo Verde to just show that we work as an institution. We as IFC finance the airport, we finance, the hotel, and with the World Bank Group, we work, on the infrastructure, being on the renewable, on the digital. But this is one example within between 132 projects that we have done so far.
Thank you very much indeed for sharing that. Okay, we are out of time. However, I'm just going to ask each of our ministers, if I can, in 25 seconds, what is your message to UAE investors, or perhaps members of the UAE government, here in the audience today? Your Excellency Patricia de Lille from South Africa, your parting message.
Well, I want to address some of the non-negotiables. And the one is any partnership must be transparent. There must be accountability. There must be a clear legal framework to avoid corruption. I think the UAE is a classical example of not only having been a partner to us, but they also pioneering new investments in the continent. And if we get that framework correct and transparent and open and accountable, I can only see success for the continent.
Thank you very much indeed. And a final word, Your Excellency Massawa, your 25-second message to the room.
So I want to let the UAE know.
Could you pick up the microphone, please, Your Excellency?
We do need this partnership. It is very important for the future of Africa. We have data. Now in Nigeria, we've done data mapping that gives arithmetic clarity as to, how investment, the return. So we need this partnership. It is very important for the future of Africa. And I think Africa is very important for the future peace of the world. So we need this partnership, and we'll make sure that the investment that comes in to Africa, and I can speak for Nigeria specifically, is going to be one that gives you returns. And we're going to make sure there's a huge real estate and a huge value and a huge return that is going to come for the UAE and the investors.
Thank you very much indeed, Your Excellencies. Ladies and gentlemen, please show your appreciation to our panelists today. My thanks to Her Excellency Hannatu Musa Massawa. Thank you very much indeed to Her Excellency Patricia de Lille from South Africa. Thank you very much indeed.